Hello! Today we're making blueberry lemon tart. We have an event at work once a month to celebrate birthdays in the office, and I usually bake a treat for that person to bring to celebrate their birthday. The person whose birthday it is this month requested something lemon. So of course I'm looking through my cookbooks and trying to think of something good lemon to make, and lemon curd came up. I think it'd be really cute to put them in little tartlets so that we don't have to mess with cutting a dish since it's for a group to share. I haven't done this before, made them into little tartlets, but I'm going to use my muffin tin and see if that works with the rough puff pastry recipe that I usually use. For both the lemon curd and the rough puff pastry, I use Claire Saffitz recipe from Dessert Person. If you don't have this book, I'll put a link down below. I use her recipes all the time and they're always really good. I've used her rough puff pastry from this book so many times that the pages are sticky. It's fine. A little bit of something I have done before with a little bit of something new. Let's try it and see what happens. Let's go. I decided to start by prepping all of the ingredients so that when we get to the stove, everything is ready to just be thrown in. This meant zesting and juicing the lemons. Before juicing, I put light pressure and roll them on the counter. This breaks the membrane on the inside and releases more juice. Then I just cut them in half and used a hand juicer. To be honest, my hand strength isn't very good, so this is probably good for me. After I've squeezed both sides once, I like to put them back into the juicer together to give them one more squeeze for last bit of juice. Sometimes they don't fit, but that's okay. Now for the zest of 2 lemons. We'll use this thing called a microplane. It's similar to a cheese grater, but with smaller holes to make the finished result more finely grated than a cheese grater would. I find it's easiest to use it by holding it in a way that seems like it's upside down, but this captures all of the fine bits of zest in the microplane and doesn't allow them to fall all over the place while you're zesting. If it's your first time zesting something, just be careful to go slow so that you don't cut a finger. The microplane is a lot sharper than it seems. Another trick is to keep the microplane still and rotate the lemon instead. I'd suggest playing around with a few different ways of handling it and see what's most comfortable for you to keep your fingers where they belong. With the lemons dealt with, we'll move on to the eggs. The lemon curd recipe calls for 4 egg yolks and 1 whole egg. Separating the yolks from the white part of the egg can be a little bit tricky and definitely slimy. The yolk is very slippery. You can use the shell to help you pass the yolk back and forth between the 2 shell halves, and the white will eventually disconnect and fall away. Or you can just use your hands and create a little cup to hold the yolk in while the white falls away. I prefer just using my hands most of the time since you get slimy cracking the eggs anyways, and I'll just go wash my hands afterwards. It's also kind of oddly satisfying to get a little messy while in the kitchen. Then we'll measure out 3/4 cups sugar and cut the stick of butter into smaller pieces so that it can melt more easily when the time comes. All of this prep seems like it takes a little bit longer, but later on when we're standing over the stove stirring and don't have to run back and forth between the stove and the cutting board, it'll be worth it. Now to the stove. We'll start with no heat just yet and mix the sugar and the zest until you can smell the citrus. I'm not sure if you can really see it here, but the moisture from the zest is enough to slightly wet the sugar and create a wet sandy texture, which is what we're going for. Then we'll add the egg and yolks we prepared and whisk well. Make sure to tilt the pan a little bit and get all the sugar that likes to hide in the bottom corners of the pan. They say that abs are made in the kitchen, but strong arms are made here too. Now we'll slowly add the lemon juice while whisking. I put a silicone pot holder under the pan to keep it from moving around, but you can also use a towel for this. And no, the heat still isn't on yet. This is all just off of the heat prep. I add a little bit of salt, give it a stir, and now we'll turn on the heat to medium-low. This is definitely a recipe that you have to babysit and whisk constantly while it's cooking, so I recommend not turning on the heat until you're ready to be at the stove for the next 10-ish minutes. It starts out very liquidy from all of the lemon juice, and it's pretty neat to see it thicken over the cook time. You can feel it start to be more resistant to the whisking, and you'll know it's done when it covers the back of a spoon and you can swipe your finger through, leaving a trail behind. It'll also turn from a bright yellow to a more pale, opaque yellow color when it's finished. Honestly, I probably overcooked mine this time, but there are ways to fluff it back up, which we'll get to in a minute. Once it's finally done cooking, remove it from heat and stir in the butter one chunk at a time. I was a little worried it wouldn't be hot enough to fully melt the butter, but it works no problem. You just need to add little bits at a time and make sure they're fully stirred in before adding the next little bit. By the time I was done with all the stirring, I felt like I'd been doing a serious arm workout at the gym. I was very happy to stop stirring. Now we'll pour it into a container and put it in the fridge to fully cool. Pressing a piece of plastic wrap onto the top of the lemon curd will keep it from forming a skin. You can also do this with guacamole to keep it from browning. In the Mendoza house, I try not to waste anything, so don't forget to make yourself a little scramble with the leftover egg whites from earlier. I added some pico de gallo that I had made in the fridge earlier, so I threw that in there, and it was a tasty lunch. Now back to work to make the tart crust. The recipe calls for almond or nut flour, which I don't have, so I decided to blitz some walnuts in the food processor and use that instead. My thought here is that the almond flour is likely used to add a nutty flavor to the crust, and the walnuts should do the same thing without needing to buy that specific ingredient. Then we'll add 1 cup of all-purpose flour, a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar, bit of salt, and mix until well blended. Next, we'll cut up another stick of butter. Man, there's really a lot of butter in these things, isn't there? And then add the pieces of butter one at a time while mixing in the food processor. Then about 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract and mix once more. Plop it into some plastic wrap and wrap tightly to rest in the fridge for at least 30 minutes. Then we'll turn onto a lightly floured surface and start forming into our tarts. This is the part where you'd normally roll it to the size of your tart pan and put it in the tart pan and start baking. But since I wanted to make small tartlets to make it easier as a single serve situation for a group of people, I decided to use my muffin tin. A few things happened here that I think is worth mentioning. I could have and probably should have rolled out the dough and used either a biscuit cutter or even the rim of a glass to cut out circles and then press them into the muffin tin to make them a little bit prettier and more uniform. However, the dough was quite sticky and I was having trouble getting it to roll out without adding a ton of flour, which I didn't want to do. So what I ended up doing didn't look the prettiest, but it worked surprisingly well and made this less of a sticky nightmare to work with. I pinched off small bits of dough at a time, rolled them in my hands, and pressed them gently into the muffin tin, making sure that the sides and the bottom were well connected and so it didn't come apart when I took them out of the pan after baking. The first few were a little rough, but it got easier as I went along. Sometimes you just have to pivot and experiment a little and figure it out as you go. I'll also note that I did not spray the muffin tin with oil before putting the dough in. Since the dough has a full stick of butter in it, it should release from the tin without sticking once it's baked and doesn't need the extra oil. Then finally, it's time for baking in the oven at 350 degrees. Again, since we're using a muffin tin and not a traditional tart pan, it's probably going to bake differently. So I started with 20 minutes in the oven and they were a bit too underdone, so I put them back in for another 7 minutes and that was perfect. I decided to let them cool for at least 5 minutes while they were still in the tin to hopefully help them hold their shape as they cooled. And then it was time for the true test. Would they hold up? Could I get them out of the pan without sticking or falling apart into pieces? Yes, it worked! It took patience and removing them very gently, but it worked. I used paper cupcake wrappers to help them, which ended up working really well. There was one stubborn one that absolutely exploded into 1,000 pieces when I tried to take it out, so I just decided that would be a tester one that I could try later. Then I let them cool all the way on the cooling rack. While I was waiting for the cups to cool, I took the curd out of the fridge and noticed it was pretty tough and didn't have that light fluffy texture that I was aiming for. I did some quick Googling of how to fix it and found that you can mix it with whipped cream to make it fluffy. So I quickly whipped up some whipped cream. I added 1 cup of heavy whipping cream and 2 tablespoons of sugar to the stand mixer and whipped on high until stiff peaks formed and mixed it with the lemon curd. Now, every resource I found online said to gently fold the whipped cream and lemon curd together so that the whipped cream doesn't break. But the curd was just so tough, there was no feasible way to do it. So I abandoned the idea and just went for it in the stand mixer. I figured the worst that happens is that the cream breaks and I need to start again, but what I already had, I wasn't happy with anyway. Again, sometimes you just have to pivot and experiment and see what comes out. Since I was just gonna go for it, I whipped the whipped cream a little stiffer than I normally would so that it would hopefully hold up when I added the lemon. I was shocked, but pleasantly surprised that it worked. I ended up with a much lighter and fluffier texture. I gave it a test to see, and wow, it was tart. It was so good. Now, finally, time to finish them up. I spooned the lemon curd into each cup and topped with a few blueberries for a simple decoration and a little extra flavor. And with that, they're complete. Because I'm taking them into the office, I'm going to taste test the one that got all crunched up. I have tried the lemon curd, but I'm excited to try it with this. My mouth is watering. Okay. Stop. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is so good. Oh my God. This is so good. Oh my God. What have I done? Okay, I have to put it down because I'm gonna keep eating it. I think I have a new favorite dessert. Immediately picks it back up. I need to put it down. No, I'm putting it down. I'm putting it down. I'm not eating any more right now. I am very pleasantly surprised with this. It was a bunch of, well, let's see if this works and let's try that thing, and it came out really good. I think in the future I might change it up and use rough puff pastry. As crumbly and buttery as this one is, I think I want it to have more structure. Even if it was in a like tart tin, because you kind of like, I don't know if you can see, but you kind of, it just crumbles into kind of like powder. Essentially, it's like so good because it's just like, oh my gosh. Okay, I have to put it down. No. The lemon curd, this lemon fluff, it's the star of the show, which is rightfully so. Like the filling of whatever you are putting in there should be the flavor. Like the crust and the topping is just there to like be kind of supplementary and decorative on the top and that sort of thing. This lemon fluff I'm calling it lemon fluff now. That's what I'm gonna name it. When I was sitting and reading online of, okay, like how can I make this fluffier? Because when I pulled it out of the fridge after it had rested, it was just so tough. And I was like, ugh, I do not want to put this texture into the crumbly Tart little cups. I was a little bit afraid that it wouldn't work, but it came out perfectly. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna sit outside in the sun. I need a whole bowl of that. Oh my gosh, it's just so good. It's sweet and tart, refreshing. And honestly, I thought that the blueberries would do more. They're not the best blueberries. They're not like totally in season yet. That lemon though. Anyways, this is so good. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you try it. I'm putting this on everything. I'm gonna eat it by itself, by the bowl full, and I'm gonna gain like 20 pounds. I have no one but myself to blame. If you like this video or you learned something, give it a like. If you'd like to learn more, subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.